Thank you. What a wonderful start of the day and the beginning of the day from the member actuary of IRDA. Some words of wisdom, a huge appreciation for the work that the actuary is doing, but also loads of words of caution as to what could potentially go wrong, what has gone wrong across the globe, to take learning from them and use that in the way we do the work here. And the next is, and the kind of uncertainties that we face, going with the topic, the excellence that we as actuaries need to demonstrate, and what better way to take the discussion forward with the most illustrious panel in the 24th Global Conference of Actuaries. Gurpreet talked about the heavyweights. You can add as many adjectives as possible, but this is really the most illustrious panel where you have the president of the International Actuarial Association, Bozenna, our own president, Preeti Chandrashekhar, the president of the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries, Kartina, the president of the Society of Actuaries, Amanda, and immediate past president of Casualty Actuarial Society, Frank. Thank you very much. I am deeply honored to share the dais, to share the stage with such an illustrious group of global actuarial leaders who are influencing the actuarial practice across the globe. Another very extraordinary feature that you would notice is the constitution of this panel. Yeah? You can see the women power in full display on this stage today. Big round of applause for the women power and women in leadership. And thank you, Frank. You bring the diversity to this group today. And now I am the moderator. The panel sits here. So Frank is the only one who brings diversity. Thank you, Frank. So this is such a strong message to all the industries across the globe, from the profession of actuaries in India. Look at how the women are leading the profession from the front. And look at the 2 days, the MCs. Today you have Gurpreet as a diversity, but look at the two MCs, the lovely MCs that had been engaging with you, and conducting the entire conference. Again, a great round of applause to our women women volunteers and women leaders. We'll just dive right into the discussion, and we have discussion across a number of topics, navigating global frontiers. So the first question is across the technological disruption and automation. And the artificial intelligence, machine learning, and predictive analytics are disrupting many industries and are changing the way many industries operate today. The question is to none other than the president of the International Actuarial Association, Bozenna. Bozenna, do you see this as a challenge to actuarial profession? And if yes, how do you think the actuarial profession should respond to this challenge?
Thank you very much, Anurag. Yes, absolutely. So this is a challenge, but don't forget that change is a challenge and an opportunity. And in terms of how the profession can respond, firstly, I'm going to talk about the International Actuarial Association, and then I'm going to talk about an association as an example, and I'll use Australia just because I'm quite familiar with it. So in terms of the IAA, what it did to address this challenge is last year it set up a task force focusing specifically on AI. And that task force covered themes such as professionalism, governance, the changing role of the actuary, education, and innovation. And they've produced a number of work products that will soon be released to all the actuarial associations. In 2025, the task force has reformed And actually, Frank is the chair of this task force in 2025. And it will be focusing on engagement and foundations, research and advancement, case studies and tools, and an adoption framework. What we are doing through all of that is seeing how we can make AI practical for actuaries in their implementation. I'm also very pleased to say that there's an Indian member of that task force, and I'm hoping that he will be the voice of all of you, bringing the knowledge from India to share with the rest of the world, because that is such an important part of what the IAA can do. It can be sharing knowledge from all the associations across the world. The IAA is also looking at how it can adapt its existing standards and guidance notes to take account of AI. In terms of the professions around the world, each actuarial association, I'm sure each of them are taking up this challenge. And as an example of what one association is doing, in the Australian Association, in their actuary program, they have already put a data science course. It's been in there as part of the compulsory teaching for a number of years. In their fellowship program since 2021, they have had a fellowship applications model focusing on data science. So there is the training for actuaries that's happening. Also, at the council level, there is a specific practice committee focusing on data science. And not only that, but there is a young actuaries a committee which is also focusing on data science, because these are the people at the cutting edge who are playing with it, adopting it on a daily basis. There's also specific newsletters focusing on AI and actuarial events. And I'm sure that the Indian Association, if they're not already doing these things too, has the opportunity to also take those things into account. So there is so much the profession is doing. And although I've given Australia as an example, I know that many other associations around the world are doing the same things. And by this, we are teaching all actuaries and engaging all actuaries in the power of AI and the future.
Thank you very much, Bozenna. That gives a lot of confidence that we are getting our actuaries ready for what's coming up next. This is the umbrella organization of all the actuarial associations. Any president of any actuarial association would like to talk about, how their actuarial association or in their jurisdiction, something interesting is happening in that respect?
I'll let other folks talk about actuarial associations, but I want to give you a sobering thought. So the Chief Technology Officer at Uber recently sent an email out to all engineers and data scientists, and it said, if our competitors are landing code 10 times faster than us, then we need to be worried. And I think that is true for actuaries as well. If someone's able to do actuarial analyses at 10 times the speed, they're going to be a lot more effective. One other thing I'll say about just that real quick is, has anyone heard of the term vibe coding? Like vibe as in the Gen Z term, vibe coding. So that's a thing now, right? Engineers aren't writing code, they're doing vibe coding. They're like, I'll just check the vibe of what the Gen AI thing is spitting out and see if it works. So I think it is something that we do need to adapt, and I think the IAA having an AI task force is critical to helping all the other member organizations like the IAI and everyone else to adapt and also have tools so that actuaries can pick them up.
Thank you very much. That's interesting. I think Kartina has yeah, please.
So I think on this question, I think the opportunity is there for us, right, in terms of actuaries and in terms of AI. And we do recognize that from an IFoA perspective. So we're doing quite a lot around this, and definitely we are supporting the IAA in the work that they're doing. In fact, we're leveraging quite a lot from the IAA as well. But from an IFoA perspective, we have a council working group that is looking specifically at this, because this is a priority for us. And this is one of the things that we're looking at. We're also kind of leveraging on partners as well, so around training and certificates. We are doing something with another partner who already has the material, so we're doing that. And then we're also looking around our syllabus as well, how we incorporate AI, machine learning, etc., either on a horizontal basis or on a vertical basis.
That's it. Here you go. You hear it. Please, Amanda.
Yeah, just super quick. I mean, SOA is doing a lot of similar things, but what we're trying to do is have our SOA Research Institute put out material written by our actuaries specific right to applications. So in early 2024, we just put out a primer for generative AI. Like, let's just start with the basics. And then recently we released operationalizing LLMs, so a guide for actuaries, right? So just trying to get resources in the hands of our members, because that's ultimately our end goal.
Here you go. You hear it from the horse's mouth as to how the profession is well equipped to tackle these disruptions and these challenges. One of the problems that actuaries keep discussing that whenever we build actuarial models, we care about the audit trail, we care about the interpretability and how do you explain those models to different stakeholders, to regulators who are very particular about it, how do you get it audited through an audit trail. One of the problems that people say about AI/ML models is that you can't explain what is happening behind. It's a black box. There's no audit trail. How do you explain that? How do you interpret that and explain it to other stakeholders, and particularly the regulators? And I would ask this question from Frank.
Excellent. I would say there is a resource that you should all bookmark out there. It is Christoph Molnar's book called Interpretable Machine Learning. It is the Bible. We have it bookmarked. Anytime we need to explain a model, we go to it. And it lists all these techniques like CP plots. And you may think, what is a CP plot? Well, it's ceteris paribus, which is Latin, but it really means all things equal. So all you're doing is you're taking everything else, holding it equal, and moving one factor around and seeing what happens to the model. And there's other local things like LIME and SHAP that it describes in there. For a global view, there's also partial dependence plots. So there's a lot of techniques in this book, 37 chapters, great reference. You can always go to it if you want to understand what your black box is doing. I think then for Gen AI and LLMs, you want to use XML tags and prompt engineering to have it explain what its chain of thought is. You can actually literally ask, what are your citations? What documents are you retrieving? How are you coming to this response to an LLM? And it will tell you exactly where it's pulling things from. Now, I don't know that that answers a question for regulators, because I don't know I could go to a regulator and say, well, here's this textbook. Go learn about CP plots and ICE and LIME and SHAP. There's still a conversation that needs to be had to get regulators comfortable with these things. But the concepts are very easy. It's you're holding everything equal, moving one thing around or moving a few things around, or looking at a very local version of data of people maybe the regulator cares about and building a local surrogate model, that's LIME. So there are techniques out there to really untangle what's going on in the black box. I do think we as actuaries have a responsibility to get our regulators up to speed so they can see the same things that we do and also understand how the black box works.
Thank you very much, Frank. That was interesting. And I would urge President Preeti to have at least a couple of copies of that books in the IAI library. And I will urge the actuaries to read that book. And we actuaries are very good at writing disclaimers, so I would disclaim that we don't have any commission from the publisher of the book. Interesting. Now, our next question is about, we as actuary, as a profession, we have very strong code of conduct and ethical standards. And today there's a lot of discussion about the ethical use of artificial intelligence. This is being discussed across different forums. How is the profession trying to address the issue of ethics in the use of AI models by actuaries? And I will request our own Preeti to take this question.
Okay, thanks a lot, Anurag. I think at the outset, I would like to read out a statement which was made by the UN Secretary General at the World Economic Forum recently, where he said, we cannot build a future for our grandchildren with a system which is built for our grandparents, which means that you have to evolve, you have to change, yet make sure that you have the governance and guardrails around ethical use of AI very, very strong. And as a profession, we are known to have extremely strong governance and ethical principles, and a lot of our work is valued and instills that kind of a confidence in our stakeholders who are consumers of our work, because they know that we have a very, very strong ethical and governance standards. From an AI and ML perspective, let me just sort of briefly look at the building blocks that we're talking about. The first one is data, right? Data is something which is very, very critical for us to even use technology, AI, machine learning, whatever terminology you call. And we have to be very careful how the privacy and integrity of data is maintained. So that's the first parameter. Second one is algorithms. Everything is based on algorithms, so any kind of a bias in algorithms is something that we have to be very, very careful about. And we have to test the models to ensure that this bias is minimized and ensure fairness. The third thing is about assumptions. Everything in the actuarial world is about assumptions, right? If there's insufficient data, there are incorrect assumptions, then obviously your results will in some sense reflect that. And because there's a whole lot of dependency upon AI and machine learning, somewhere the audit trail that Anurag talked about, it just gets lost or diffused. And then you have aspects such as AI hallucinations. How do you make sure that those assumptions are actually accurate and lead to the right outputs? That's the third dimension. Fourth one is accountability. AI is only a means to an end. The actuary continues to be accountable. You cannot have a machine being accountable for your decisions. I think that's extremely important. And last but not the least, I would talk about transparency and communication to stakeholders, which is something that we all grapple with as we speak as professionals. It gets more compounded when you're talking about AI and machine learning being used to come up with results which aid you. So that is the fifth dimension I thought I'll sort of talk about.
Thank you. Very relevant point, Preeti. But from 7 seas across, Amanda, do you have any views on this?
Yeah, I would love to add. So I think this is really important in India too, right, where you have a lot of vast data diversity. So there is a risk, right, of introducing bias or not having the correct assumptions across different regions or different demographics. But I want to build on what Preeti said about our reputation as actuaries by telling a little story. So I travel a lot, and I had the privilege to go to Uganda to go gorilla trekking about a year ago. And gorilla trekking is when you hike into the woods on foot to find a family of gorillas, and then you hang out with them. So it's as cool as you could imagine and as terrifying as you could imagine. There was a moment where there was this 350-pound gorilla walking straight towards me, and I thought that might be the end of my life. But the thing that I wanted to share was I was wearing a Society of Actuaries sweatshirt with our logo, and it said Society of Actuaries. And this is the middle of rural Uganda, and a guide came up to me and said, "Society of Actuaries, that's so cool." And I thought, wow, okay, we're not always known for being the cool profession, so I was happy to hear that. And I asked him if he knew what actuaries do. He said, yes, I do. They're very intelligent. And that's what you often hear, right? But then he looked right at me and said, and because you're an actuary, I know I can trust you. And I just thought, wow, how powerful is that our brand, sort of regardless of what organization you're credentialed through or come through, our brand is so strong that I'm in the middle, basically, of the jungle, and this guide, my guide Omax, knew that he could trust me. And so I would say we're operating from a position of strength, and it's up to us to maintain that even when we're introducing new models and technology.
Great. I think you made the day for a lot of us by saying that in Canada, people think Society of Actuaries is cool. I think, Preeti, we need to spend a lot more time with Society of Actuaries.
Jungles, you mean?
Preeti and I both were laughing because we keep discussing how to make our profession cool to the Gen Z. How do we attract them? And that's exactly the topic of discussion. Thank you very much, Amanda, for bringing that topic. So currently, while we are trying to bring in all these new technologies, we are integrating these new technologies in actuarial curriculum. We are encouraging actuaries to learn these new technologies. So we as actuaries, the kind of risks that are increasing in the world, the more complex the world is becoming, we need far more actuaries than there are. Every country is facing some kind of a shortage of actuarial skills and actuaries, while there are other competing professions, competing education. One of those is data sciences, AI, machine learning, and some of these new technologies. How do we make our profession look more cool? One is to, of course, spend time with Amanda, but in general, how do we make our profession look more cool? How do we attract more and more youngsters? And I'll request Frank to take this question, please.
Sure, sure. So I do visit quite a bit of universities and even high schools, and I think you just have to work from the standpoint that students have a bright mind and they want to be challenged. You want to give them a hard problem to think about, because you can engage folks with marketing, you can engage folks in that little flash in the pan moment. But what you really want to do is you want to get someone really engaged with a problem, and then they'll start to love it. So we talk about things like EVs. So electric vehicles, right now in China, over 50% of the vehicles are electric vehicles. We have self-driving vehicles in many places in the United States. How do we do insurance for that? We have flying cars. My colleague Ron loves talking about flying cars. But if you look it up, there's actually a few places with flying cars. We talk about climate. That's really meaningful. You go to a place like Malaysia, they care about the floods, right? Because they've experienced that. You go to different areas, it's a different disaster or different climate issue that they think about. Yesterday at the reinsurance section, Mr. Srinivas Rao talked about risk mitigation as being important in reinsurance. And so this is a question that you can ask students. You can say, come up with ideas to solve some of the problems that we have. What are risk mitigations we can take? How would you solve microinsurance? How to use Gen AI? Sri Satya Sai, Institute of Higher Learning, yesterday presented about a use of Gen AI to detect claim fraud. So you give these bright minds problems to play with, and they get engaged. The CAS, I have to give a plug, we have a summer program. I met one of the students of the summer program, Govind, here. I think we have a few others. Oh, there he is in the front. We also have a case study competition where we take some of these things like microinsurance, and we make a case study and we let universities compete. They form teams and compete with each other to see if they come up with ideas. And you wouldn't be surprised, right? These students are bright. They come up with really good ideas. And that's how you engage them. And just so you know, the summer program and the case studies, you don't have to take CS exams. You just have to be interested in general insurance, and you can sign up for it. So I think engaging university students is very important, as you say, both to train future actuaries, but also to get bright minds thinking about hard problems.
Great. I mean, I could see Frank was tossing these balls to each one of you here. Who would like to catch which one? And not just think about it as to how do you apply your skills to different industries, but also talk about it, write about it, and connect with those industries as to what solutions you can bring about in those industries. And
Anurag, do you mind if I add a bit more
to
that?
Yeah, please, most welcome.
So I think on that, if you think about supply, and it's about value, perception, and brand, right? So it's how we're perceived by the younger generation. And I think, controversial point, maybe not, I think we start too late engaging with the young minds. I think we should start at grassroots education. If I go to my kids' school at 4 years old, the accountants, the doctors are already there introducing their profession, and we're not. So I think that's something that we can do through our members in their community to equip them to talk to schools on our behalf. And I think the other thing that we can do is leveraging on things that they're engaged with, which is unfortunately social media. So things like, I don't know, TikTok, or just make it fun.
So it's banned here, but
yeah, let's start a working group on TikTok. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Any other perspective anybody would like to bring?
Maybe I'll add purely from an India perspective, maybe applicable to the other countries. I think the challenge here is, if you go to maybe a 11th grader in India, that is a +2 or beyond, the decisions are typically already made, for the most part, by the children and the parents, depending upon what they know about different careers. And to Kartina's point, maybe we are just a bit late in entering and trying to talk about our profession. But so what can we do about it? We really need to start talking to the parents also very early, because parents are very, very strong influencers for the most part. I would like to think that they're most important influencer. But that's one. And second, are we there enough on the social media? And I know as a profession, maybe we are not so much on social media, right? Because again, it goes back to the ethics and the governance that is ingrained into us as a profession. So we are slightly late starters there. And another thing is that, you have to talk about multiple opportunities that they have, again with the parents, because, some years back I used to be very regular in one of the schools in Bangalore. They used to have something called a career fair. And what used to happen was they used to call many people. They used to call doctors, engineers, they used to call civil servants, they used to call a ton of other people from other occupations or professions. And then they used to have a catch-all called others, which had filmmaking, which had media, and also had actuarial science. So that's how it was clubbed with something else. So that was a level of awareness. From then, we have also reached a stage when we are seeing universities doing small projects as a part of their CSR activities, where they are encouraging the students to go to small villages, remote places, and say that, okay, you ask them, how much do they know about insurance in those places. So the moment you go out and speak, automatically, it's your peers who get to know that this is something exciting that they're doing. They go there to talk to them about insurance and try to encourage them to make sure that they are covered under insurance. As a process, as a course, because of that, what happens is the students get to know more beyond just what they would have heard from their parents about the whole thing about insurance and generally protection, and understand the challenges that the end consumer is facing. They become very innovative, and yet get to understand what is it that they can do to help those people. So that's really the first step in understanding the consumer and the product, and then automatically you get into the whole thing about what the actual profession is about. So that is something which is really, really interesting. I thought I'll share.
No, thank you very much, Preeti. You have actually touched upon a point that I was going to ask a question a little later, but now I'll jump onto that question because I'll continue with that thread. And so what Preeti is talking about influencing students, influencing parents, influencing colleges, and then attracting them, creating an attraction for the. And so I would like to ask Kartina, do you think that there is a need to kind of, this question is to Amanda, sorry, my apologies. Do you think that there is a need to kind of include a basic actuarial education at the school curriculum, at college curriculum, by influencing governments and including them so they are more aware about this, so one is marketing and the other is having it as part of the curriculum. Do you think there are examples in countries where this has been included as part of the curriculum?
Yeah, I think the best example is just trying to get, maybe not to the 4-year-olds, I love your ambition, but trying to get to like the class 11s, the class 12s, right? So I'll put a plug for something the Society of Actuary has on our website that anyone can use, which is called an influencer kit. And you can take it as an actuary. It has lesson plans, it has posters that could get put up in a classroom, and you can take that to your kids' schools or to your local school and talk about what being an actuary actuary is. So that's, that's the grassroots effort. That's one really practical way to get involved. And I love what is happening with Mass Stars. Like, people in this room are already doing it. So that is fantastic and really, really special to see. The other thing I'll say is that the SOA has what's called an affiliate membership program. So we realized a couple years ago, just 3 years ago, that we are not in touch with people before they get to university. And so can we have an opportunity to connect with them earlier? And so we created this program. It's grown to 25,000 people worldwide. And anyone can sign up. It's free. And it offers things like mentorship, an online content library, networking opportunities, lunch and learns. And it is on TikTok and Instagram and all the places. And so that's just a great thing. If there's anyone, and again, you don't have to be an SOA, on the SOA path, but it's a great place to direct people to say, hey, if you're interested, here's where you can learn more.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think
I'll just take a minute. So,
yeah.
taking cue from Amanda, I think, so the Institute of Actuaries of India has also started reaching out to a lot of colleges and schools, and this is where we actually had 144 people being recognized as fellows day before yesterday. I think they're the right people to go and talk to students about. They're young, they understand the pulse, they understand the jargons that they use, which I'm sure I don't for the most part. They are the people who are very strong influencers, and we are seeing a lot of that happening even in India when they go reaching out to colleges, schools to spread awareness about the profession, and the acceptability by the students is way higher when they go.
Many of our volunteers, Preeti, I can tell you, are already doing their job very well. One of our, the MC who was talking here, I know has been doing. There are many more such volunteers who are doing it. We need to just kind of expedite that and have a bigger group of actuaries. But I think Bozenna, representing the umbrella organization, may have more knowledge of different countries where the actuarial education has been integrated in school curriculum. Any thoughts, Bozenna?
So I haven't actually seen teaching of detailed actuarial topics in the school curriculum. And there's a lot already in the school curriculum, so I'm not really advocating that we start teaching very detailed actuarial concepts at school. But I do know that school curriculums teach basic compound interest and probability and statistics. And I think that is a really important grounding. And then that will excite the students so that when they can have the opportunity to go further, they can. And many of us have been attracted to the actuarial profession through our love of maths. And we get that love through our early school learning. And so I know the schools teach maths very, very well, and we can all grow and expand on that love of maths through our actuarial careers.
I think the message is loud and clear that we may continue to lobby with the governments to include it, but I think better ways and softer ways are to just reach out and influence the decision rather than making it mandatory or making it a part of the curriculum. Thank you very much for bringing that perspective to all of you. One of the reasons that people bring about, and all of us have gone through that grind, that pain of several years of studying, and you could see the smile, you could see the happiness on the faces of people who received their associateship and fellowship on 17th. And so this question is to Kartina. Do you think that there is a need to fast track this long and arduous actuarial education journey? And if yes, and we also heard our member actuary that we should not be diluting our standards of qualification because we are respected. And so number one, is there a need? Number two, if yes, how?
Okay, so this is a trap question, isn't it? So I think that we need to step back and think, why do we want to shorten the qualification, right, or the time to take to qualification? And also the question is, what is qualification? Is it associateship? Is it fellowship? So I think that the main thing, and I agree with Mr. Arora before, we shouldn't dilute our qualification. We are where we are, a trusted profession, and we're our credibility. We're all where we are because of that teaching that we have for our members. and our profession. So I think we need to have that as our North Star in terms of the quality. Saying that, I think there is something that we can think about around how we can support our members, our students, in terms of doing their exams. And one of the things that IFoA is doing more in terms of supporting perhaps students who don't want to go all the way to fellowship is kind of introducing the Chartered Actuary designation. So making sure that, you know, people on associateship is credible and has that reputation globally that's equivalent to kind of things like chartered accountants, chartered engineers, so that's recognized by our stakeholders. So that's something that we're doing. But I think there is something that is not just about learning on the exams, but also learning on the job as well. And I think that's something that we should focus on as well.
Oh, interesting. Anybody else would like to bring any perspective to this? But it's important, and I fully agree with Kartina, that we cannot afford to dilute our standards the way our profession is respected. That's the last we want to do. Okay, great. In the interest of time, I would move to some other topics. And we heard the Secretary, Ministry of Finance, talk about actuaries moving out into other industries, how we can add value. As a profession, we have been talking about stepping out of our boundaries and contributing to other industries. How can we speed up this movement? And to talk on this, I mean, I would toss this question to, I think, one of the most eligible persons on this panel, Frank. And let me tell you, Frank, while he's an actuary from Casualty Actuarial Society, he is currently, for last 11, 12 years, 12, 13 years, what something? Well, he has been working with Uber.
Yes.
He doesn't work for an insurance company. Before that, he used to work for Google. So I'll ask this question to Frank. How did he achieve this transition? And how can we expedite this movement from traditional insurance industries to other industries?
That's a great question. I think the key thing we need to know is that actuaries are problem solvers. So when I first went to Google, and I presented here 2 years ago about forecasting phone sales, right, using reserving techniques. I used LDFs, I used Bootstrap, and I was able to forecast phone sales for Google. I solved a credit card risk problem, and they also, it's known as Waymo now, but back then it was known as Chauffeur, their self-driving car, and they had questions about how much injury would a different design produce. The original self-driving car was 25 miles an hour at most, kind of looked like a golf cart. There was no windows. It's like, well, if there's no A-frame, no structure, the passenger's going to get injured. Here's the injury cost in the United States. We pulled all the data, and this is what you're looking at for that design. And so actuaries really need a partner in problem solving. Fast forward, that was 2012. Fast forward to 2025. Now there are hundreds of actuaries in Silicon Valley at Lyft, Uber, DoorDash, you name it, Expedia. All of the big companies have found the secret, which is that actuaries can solve problems. They can solve real-world problems. And so the way to accelerate it is to get that brand out there. You need 1 or 2 actuaries in India that have a big brand, go to a tech company and solve their problems, and the next thing you know, every other tech company is going to be struggling to catch up. They want that secret sauce. And that's what happened in California. I'll give one other example. So I've got here, I don't know that this is very popular here, but I've got a credit card. Okay. Now these, well, I mean the American Express specifically. I'm sure you all have credit cards. Okay. I have UPI here too, but credit cards give you points. They give you a lot of points. Airlines give you points, right? And these points, some people are just like point hoarders. They have like millions of points that they might not even use. They'll pass away with all these points. But these points represent a promise, right? They're free flights, free hotels, free nights. That costs money. And sometimes it costs tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. An actuary started a company that looks at loyalty, and now there's a whole bunch of consulting actuaries looking at these loyalty programs to estimate what is the liability of all the points that they have outstanding with all the hoarders out there, all the point maximizers. So actuaries can solve real world problems. We just need to find more people to do that, and that'll get our brand out there.
That's great. I mean, I was just thinking, how do we kind of connect with those people, and how do Indian industries connect with those people to see the kind of work that's being done? And I know Kartina, but I'll come to you a little later. I'll just toss this question to Bozenna. Do you have something from different jurisdictions that you?
Yeah, I really want to echo exactly what Frank has said. The way to get into new areas is to go. And so Frank is a living example of someone who has taken that leap and moved into a new career path. So you can choose to get an employer who is a life insurance company, a general insurance company, a pension fund, or you can take the leap into go to one of those new areas. Or consultants are often really well placed to go and take on those exciting roles. So in some of my prior jobs, I have worked at a consultant and had that opportunity and was involved in the deregulating energy industry in the Australian market many years ago. I also did work for a vineyard who wanted to value the vineyard, and you plant the grapes and then years later you get the wine, and so how do you actually value that? I did work for a teleco they were looking at the influx of mobile phones and the devaluation of their fixed line business. I did work for an industrial paint company who was also looking at how they were pricing and selling their paint across the thing. So there is a lot of opportunities for actuaries to apply their skills in different areas. The key thing is the same principles. It's just thinking about the customer, thinking about the market, and how to translate your terms into their language, and so that you can relate to them. But all of us have these skills, and we just have to be creative enough and brave enough to go and take these opportunities. And many actuarial associations are including these examples in their actuarial programs to help give new students that courage to go and take these leaps.
Thank you, members. Thank you, Bozenna. Sorry, Kartina, for making you wait.
No, Bozenna has covered what I wanted to say. So I think that the main thing is individuals have the growth mindset, and to Bozenna's point around the bravery of stepping out. But member associations, we also have a role to play spotlighting on these brilliant examples.
Thank you very much. I mean, coming to this topic, now that we're talking about moving to other industries, and there are so many other professionals who are already working with different industries, is there a need for collaborating with these different professionals, let's say accountants, engineers, data scientists? Will this collaboration help in speeding up this movement? And if yes, how do we do that? And I will ask Amanda to take this question, please.
Yeah, I think collaboration is obviously always important, and when we bring together all our different skills and figure out, okay, what are the accountants or maybe the data scientists missing? I'll tell a story back from when I worked at MassMutual, a life insurance company, and our data scientists, we asked them to try and do an experience study and and figure out what are the factors that are driving mortality. And they went away and they spent months working on it, and then they came back and said, you know what, the biggest drivers are age and risk class. And we were like, yeah, we didn't need you to spend 3 months figuring that out. And so working with them to say, okay, maybe they don't have that kind of underlying product expertise that we might have, but they have the technical, so how do we work together? And I would just really echo what Bozenna said. We need to be able to communicate and explain the way that we think, the way that we operate, and help them understand that. And if you can't, you might be the smartest person in the room, but if you cannot communicate it, there's no value add. So really making sure that you're spending time, as you're getting qualified and as you're doing your professional development, spending time on those communication skills.
Communicate, communicate, communicate. Speak up. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, Preeti.
Yeah, I would just like to go back to the trinity that I talked about yesterday when you talked about collaboration and value creation. It is important for us to create value for the other professional with whom we are collaborating. Otherwise, very often if we go with the attitude that you're doing something in a certain way, you know what, I'm smarter and I can do it differently and much more efficiently, then you have closed all doors, minds towards collaboration. It's important for us to create value in their minds that, you know, our approach does make their life easier, better, and they as professionals will also win. So they will, if they win through our collaboration, we will also win. That's one point. Second one, an example is, you know, accountants and actuaries. Actually, both of us are highly regulated professionals. And if you look at something as simple as an enterprise risk, the 3 lines of defense in the standard framework that we talk about, the first line of defense is through the business, second is through the legal compliance, the third is the auditor. So is there something that we can do where we work together with them on the enterprise risk side, so you don't wait for the auditors to point out things and we tell them that this is the kind of risk an organization is facing? That's an area that I think very closely can look at. Another one, a living example is IFRS, you know, where things where we collaborated, did we make it more complex? So between two professions where things are highly regulated, did you compound the regulation associated? I don't know, I mean, that's a debate we can have on the IFRS side. But a third thing also is on data scientists. See, data scientists know data crunching, but as I said earlier, that the actuary is accountable, not the data scientist, especially from an insurance context. They don't know the domain as much as you do. So that is where we see that collectively we can actually add value to the industry and to each other.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Preeti, for, you know, clearly showing the, please.
I would like to add to that. So I manage both actuaries and data scientists. Now, I do think that we as actuaries, and I would encourage everyone who's a fellow out there to think about this, you have to be continuously learning. So at Uber, I had 2 choices. I could either learn what the data scientists are doing, or I could work for a data scientist. Because eventually, the data scientists are known as the people that can do general things. And actuaries, as much as people trust us, they may say, oh, you're just like an insurance person. So it's either learn or you're going to be managed. And so every time a data scientist came to me with something, I would try to figure out what they were doing. So in the Uber app, I think in India it's 100 for the emergency number. We used to have an emergency button on the phone, right? And you could say help, and the emergency services would come. But the issue is with a button, you have a lot of false positives. People just keep tapping it. So you switched it to a slider bar. And they wanted to see, does this reduce the number of false positives? So what they did is very basic. It's an A/B test, right? Everyone in tech does A/B tests. They go, control gets this, treatment gets this, let's look at the difference. But in actuarial, oftentimes we just look at like correlation between factors. We go, well, these people have a higher loss, so we're going to charge them more. And you know, we might have a GLM or some fancy way. We never do a study like an A/B test. So I said, okay, I can steal that. And I said, what else you got? They use diff and diff. If there's no A/B test, they use difference and difference. They use causal inference. So one by one, I learned all of the data science techniques that they were using because there's no reason we couldn't use them as actuaries. So I do think that we do need to collaborate with others, but we should learn from them as well. We shouldn't just say, oh no, actuarial is this narrow corner. We're going to just draw the line here because we're not going to do A/B tests and all that other stuff. We should learn the other techniques and incorporate in our flow.
Thank you very much, Frank. Thank you. My instinct, I mean, the discussion is so interesting that my instinct tells me to continue this discussion longer and longer, but my clock tells me that we are already running fairly late, and I'm sure that a lot of our audience would want to ask questions from this illustrious panel, so I would like to throw it open to audience. Is somebody ready with the mic? Please rotate the mic wherever you see a show of hand. Any questions from this panel? Please ask your questions and name the panel whom you are addressing. Okay. I thought they were still dazed and they were not able to think what question to ask. I have a question. Yeah, wonderful.
Hi. Thanks a lot for this insightful session. This is a question to Amanda. SOA exemptions for exams passed through IAI. So we have seen some traction there, some development there, and there is a long way to go. So what's the future for Indian students looking for, who are trying to make a career in US industry?
I'm sorry, the audio is so bad up here. So the question is about
will
exam
explain.
exemptions from
Yeah,
SOA to IAA? IAI, okay. Yeah, so we do have a couple exam exemptions to IAI. So the first 4 IAI exams qualify, keep me honest here, qualify for 2 of our what we call VEEs, Validation by Educational Experience, and then also our P and FM exams. Yeah, so we do have those 4. Obviously, we would love to have more. It is a challenge, right? Because there are things that we have in our syllabus that aren't necessarily in the IAI syllabus, but it's always something we're looking at and thinking about, but do know we do have those couple.
We have been talking to SOA about, MRA, and that's something that it's in the works. Just hold your patience for some more time. Any other questions? I could see a hand there, please.
Yeah, I have a question to Frank. So when you said that we need to sell ourselves to companies like Google or Uber, that we can solve some problems. Now, how do we sell it? How do we say that what unique skill set that we have? Because in India, at least I know that all these companies are employing, because we have competition from MBA graduates, we have competitions from chartered accountants in these fields. So what skill set that we can say that as actuaries we possess that can help us gain that competitive advantage?
Great question. So let me give you the practical aspect of my journey. So what happened was Google hired a consultant, right? That's very important. Consulting firms, actuarial consulting firms may have more varied work, right? And Aon was the consultant for Google. And Google thought, gosh, this Aon is charging us $40,000 for everything. What if we just got someone in-house? And so I got my foot in the door. And once you get your foot in the door, then you start networking. I actually asked for my job at Uber because the person who was at Uber, the CFO, was from Google. And I said, if you ever need an actuary, and Uber's got a lot of cars, a lot of insurance problems, think of me. And so I think the lessons we learn is, 1, consultants really do have a foot in the door in a lot of industries that we might not know, and that's a great way for actuaries to break in. 2, networking. Networking is so key, right? You solve problems for someone and they see you do that, they're going to use you in the next job, and then it spreads after that. Hopefully I answered some of your question. I hope it happens in India too.
Thanks, that answered my question. Thank you so much.
I think that'll be the last question. I would like to save a couple of minutes. Yeah, that's the last question. Yeah.
So my question is to Frank as well. Could you elaborate and give an example on how you used one of those tests, like difference and difference testing, to the actuarial work?
Absolutely. So, okay, we have driving insights. So we've got this phone. We have Cambridge Mobile Telematics, which is a firm that does telematics, right? We send all the telematics from the phone to them to analyze. And they give a driving score to drivers. So there's a few questions. 1, if a driver sees the driving score, will they behave better? 2, if you give them incentive, if you say, if your driving score is above 75, we'll give you more earnings, will they then try to increase their driving score? And that can only be done with A/B tests to see what is happening, right? You really need to kind of split the market to understand if you see, you can think of, there's a whole bunch of different treatment groups, right? If you just see it versus if you just see it and then you get like incentive on top of it, what are the different effects for safe driving? So that's one example, but we have a few others as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sure it answered the question, but I would like you to give a round of applause. Look at the excitement and passion of Frank. He was almost ready to jump out of the chair the moment the question came. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Maybe the ultimate last. Yeah.
Sir, this is not the question, it's just an observation. As you said, it is a woman-led panel, and we were really enlightened to see all this diversity. 4 by 6 are women. And today there is another day of celebration that Sunita ji has come back. Sunita Williams. So that is so I would relate that success of her return with the actuarial profession, because all the assumptions made for her return have proved to be true. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for reminding that. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So that brings us to the close of this session. Thank you very much, ladies and a gentleman, for being here and for enlightening the audience with your wonderful insights. The kind of discussion that we have will remain in my mind for a lot of time, and we'll continue our discussion off the stage on several other topics that we could not cover today. Thank you very much. Have a great day. And thank you very much for being a very, very, a patient audience asking relevant questions. Thank you.